By that clock on the wall, we're about that time to begin our study hour. Hope everyone had an opportunity to pick up a bulletin. Want to urge you to do so because I won't go over everything in detail this morning. Just want to continue in prayer for the family of Amanda Bradford as we had her funeral yesterday. Just please continue to lift up Tim and Becky and Mason and all Aaron and the children. Some tough days will be ahead. As our church family here, it was wonderful to see the outpouring of love that has been shown over the last few days with the news we received from that, and ask that we all continue to do so as that healing process is ongoing. Also, remember the family of Beth Fine Bacon. Remember Lynn and Jason and Lauren and all the girls and Miss Elizabeth. Keep them in your prayers. We're still awaiting any information on that as far as her arrangements go. Continue to remember our sister Sandra with the passing of her father, Mr. Huggy Edison, and Mr. Albert Mulkin, and Huggy Edison is the Nikki's father-in-law. So continue to remember that family as well. Be aware of all the events that are ongoing and upcoming. There's several things. Like I say, I'm not going to go through all those this morning. So I do want to let everyone know that we have Brother Colton Scott with us this morning from the Healing Hands Ministry. And he's going to be giving us an update this morning on things that they have going on. We have had the blessed opportunity to participate with some of the projects that they do. And, you know, as a congregation, we have a lot of ministries that we fund and help that, unfortunately, other than reports that come in when someone comes and gives us an update, that's really all we know a lot of times. But with the Healing Hands, we are actually participating and making everybody an opportunity to be involved in the lives of so many. Just think about the little children that receive those Magi boxes. Little children that we're so blessed in this nation, we really can't comprehend what their lives are like and the difference that such a small thing on our part is huge and massive in their lives and the difference that makes. Think about the whales that we were fortunate God blessed us to be able to help with. You know, that's the most basic fundamental part of life. The greatest element to us in life is the ability to have fresh water. And in so many cases, there's so many parts of the world that don't have that opportunity. But we also had an opportunity to see what their life's like as we carried. Colton, you'll have to tell me what they call those jugs. The jerry cans. And that's something you can do to experience what everyday life is like for so many in this world. And just like that is essential to the physical life, we know that the water is essential in baptism, in the blood of Christ, and being immersed in the water for spiritual life. So it's these things that give us an opportunity to really put ourselves in the shoes of others and to make such a difference that we can participate in. Colton's here for camp, and Colton was telling me he was getting too old for camp. He's really feeling it. I didn't tell him that just last week we had Alan here, and I think Alan is, y'all can tell me, about 68 or 70 now, and he's going strong. They had fireworks down there last week, Colton, and I'm going to say Alan's still a firecracker. So you got a long way to go, my young brother. But I'm not going to take all of Colton's time. We just want him to know that we appreciate him. And without further delay, Colton, the floor is yours.
Can you guys hear me there in the back? Am I yelling at you? A little bit? I don't know how to make it quieter. I apologize for that. I'll just do my best not to yell. I am 32, but I feel like I'm going on about 82 in spirit, especially when I step foot on camp and it's hot and it's sweaty and there's kids around and they're asking me questions. And so, I was telling them it gets harder and harder every year when you got 2 little kids at home. And I went to leave yesterday, and we have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. 6-year-old girl who's the sweetest human ever born on this planet, who is perfect, and I'd let her do my taxes because she's so smart. And then I have a 3-year-old boy who is the exact opposite of everything that she is, and he's the most contrarian human there's ever been. No matter what you say, it's always the opposite. And so he's gotten here lately into the word hate, because we say the word love so much, and he knows the word hate's the opposite, and we're trying our best to be like, we just don't say hate ever. We don't hate things. We don't hate everything. But yesterday, as I was going to walk out the door for a week, I'm trying to hold back, the tears, because it's a week away from the kids. And I say, all right, I love you. And my wife says, I love you. And little Raleigh, she comes up, she says, I love you, Daddy. And Everett goes, I don't love you. I hate you, Daddy. And I was like, all right, fair enough. And I get my bags and I start to walk, and he comes over and he latches onto my foot and he says, I'm an anchor stuck in mud. And I'm not trying to get off. And he goes, please don't leave, Daddy. And it's like, oh man, I'm never going to camp. I'm calling him, I'm telling him I'm staying here. But anyway, it is so good to be back with you guys. I was talking with Caleb earlier, and I was like, how long have you been here now? Because I was thinking about the last time I was here, and I knew he wasn't here yet. And I was like, what was that, like 6 months or so maybe that you got here? He's like, yeah, no, like 2 years. I'm like, wow, I guess it was a long time since I've been here. And I know since the last time I've been here, you guys have had a walk for water, and I believe Gillian Kelly came down and spent the day with you, and I had to be somewhere else, unfortunately. But I tell you what, they always, ask me if I'm sort of involved in helping a walk get going. They just would, they're always trying to budget and do, be efficient, things like that. So they generally ask me, just based on the size of the area, the size of the church, like, what do you think this, this walk will do or whatever? And I was like, I don't know, it's the area is much smaller than, other areas. I mean, we have walks in Birmingham and Huntsville and Florence, things like that. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, they can do a wheel. They can do $7,500, and that's sort of, And then the total came back, and I tell you, it was everyone in Nashville, the whole company was like, did you see what Enterprise, Alabama, how much effort they put forth on the walk? Not just the funds raised, but the participation and everything. And it was one of those, people in Nashville cry all the time. I'm not a crier, but there was crying and things like that, of just how joyful everyone was for all of the, just how much everyone here participated. And on behalf of everybody at Healing Hands and the people in Zimbabwe who benefited from your efforts, just thank you for that. I will start like I always do, and that's with water. Now, I have a lot to talk about today, and I would love to have a little bit of time at the end for you guys to ask questions if you're interested in doing that. So I'm going to try to talk fast, and I already talk fast. So please, this is laid back. Someone just gently raise your hand if I need to slow it down a little bit so that you can hear what I'm saying, okay? I would like you to take just a moment, if you can, and I'd like you to think about all of the ways that you are going to use clean water today. Just today. I suspect already when many of you woke up this morning, one of the first things that you did was went and used the restroom and turn on a sink to wash your hands, and then and made some coffee, may have made some oatmeal, may have drank some water, may have given some water to your kids, may give some water to your pets. Later on, you may wash your car, you may wash your clothes, you may wash your dishes, you may water your flowers. Can you even imagine how difficult your life would be if you no longer had access to fresh, clean water? That is the story right now for nearly 1 billion people on this planet.
And so what they do every single morning when they get up is they grab a bucket, they grab a jerry can, they grab whatever it is they have that'll hold water, and they start walking. And some of them walk a mile, some walk 2 miles, some walk 10 miles. I can give you a small anecdote. A few years ago, we were in Haiti. We were traveling to this rural village, and as we were driving, we crossed this little stream, and there were these 2 young men, probably 7, 8 years old, and each of them had a bucket in each hand, and they had just filled up at this little creek. And we asked them if they wanted a ride back to their house, and they said they did. So they hopped in the back of our truck, and we drove those 2 young men 5 miles one direction. And the next day, when we were gone, those same young kids were going to get up again. They were going to grab those same buckets, and they were going to make that same 5-mile walk back to that water source, because that is the only water that their family is going to have that entire day. And a lot of times when we talk about development, we talk about work in the global south, I hear a lot of ideas of what we have to do to help people get out of poverty. And it's all the same ideas, and it's all very well-meaning, and they're good ideas. We gotta increase education. We gotta improve access to markets. We got to teach, basic, marketing and business skills and all of these things, and it's all very good. But my question is, when does an 8-year-old learn English? When is an 8-year-old supposed to learn math and science and history when they have to walk 10 miles every day just to get water for their family? Now, unfortunately, if you know much about the water crisis, you already know that the opportunity cost of the distance traveled isn't the worst part of the water crisis. The worst part of the crisis is the quality of the water that they get. This right here is a typical water source in rural Kenya. This is a typical water source in rural Kenya. A few years ago, I was in the Masai Mara region of Kenya on the border of Tanzania, and I met this young lady here. She was my age, which would make her 32 now. At the time, she had 5 kids, and she told me that she makes the walk from her house to this watering hole 4 times every single day. Now, in this village, there were 2,500 people and 10,000 animals, and every single living soul and living creature in that village got their water from this right here. There was a little underground spring there, and so you would scoop it up, and then it would bubble right back to the top. And all day long, they'd stand there in about an hour-long line until their turn to scoop up this muddy water to take back home. The day after we left that village, we went to visit some of our brothers and sisters at the Yarrow Church of Christ, where we were completing another well project. And while that was being completed, we were talking to the preacher there, Frederick, and he asked us if we wanted to go see where they were currently getting their water, and we did. And so we walked probably a mile or so from the church to what I'd call a mud hole about the size of this room. And while we were standing there and we were talking, there were these 2 young ladies who had come up with their jerry cans, and they had started filling up those jerry cans with water. And behind them, there was another gentleman who had also showed up. And he had with him about a dozen or so cows. And those cows were standing knee-deep in the water. And if you know much about cows, you know that while they were drinking, they were defecating into the same water that those 2 young ladies were about to take home to cook with, to clean with, to drink, to give their children to drink, because it's the only water that they have. Every single day on this planet, we lose 6,000 people to dirty water. And of that 6,000, about 90% are children ages 5 or younger, because their bodies are the most vulnerable to diseases like cholera that you get from drinking water that's been defecated in. And all of this is taking place in a world that has more wealth and technological capacity than it's ever had in history. And it's the part of the water crisis that makes me hopeful and simultaneously frustrated to no end, is that this isn't some disease that we're waiting to find a cure for. The water crisis, hypothetically, could be solved tomorrow. Literally, you could solve it tomorrow. All you do is you take a big truck, you drive to the area, you poke around, you make a guess at where water is, you drill down until you hit water, and once you find it, you build a pump, and then the people have water. And that's the end of the story. It's not a very complicated process. The problem is simply getting enough people who have resources to care enough to choose to do something about the issue. And when that happens, we get different images and we get different stories. We get images like this and like this. My favorite picture in the world. Here's a young lady. I mean, you can't overstate what's happened in this picture. Here's a young lady who I guarantee every single day of her life that she can remember, she's gotten up and she's walked with her mom or her sisters or her friends some number of miles to get dirty water for her family. And then one day, she has no idea why. She didn't hear probably that this was happening, just she heard there was something happening in the village, and suddenly these Christians from America show up with Christians from Haiti, and they drill a freshwater well right there in her village, and she doesn't have to walk anymore. She doesn't have to walk any longer. She doesn't have to drink dirty water any longer. If you're someone who feels compelled by that, and I know you guys are, there's an event that we have at Healing Hands you're very familiar with. As we just said, you guys did one last year. It was phenomenal. If you're new here or if you're not aware, I do hope and I pray that the next time an event like this happens around here that you will participate. It's a very simple concept. We walk 4 miles so that these people don't have to. That's the average distance that women and girls walk every day to get water. We walk it. We bring some jerry cans. We fill it up. We'll give you an idea of what it's like to carry 40 pounds of water for a little bit. I assume probably no one here carried it all 4 miles. I've never carried it all 4 miles. It's incredibly heavy. I have no interest in doing that. I can get the idea after just a few feet. And the idea that these women and these girls do it every single day is absolutely heartbreaking. But again, because of your efforts here at in College Avenue, I'm sorry, there's a College View in Florence, and I practiced all day not calling you guys College View. College Avenue, because of your efforts here, there's 3 villages in Zimbabwe, and they're not going to have to do that anymore. That's no longer their story. This village here, and this village here, and this village here. I mean, we're talking about 1,000 people who, before last year, before November 2021, I guarantee you there's ladies in this village who are 70 years old who have walked for water every day of their life. Even at 70, still walking to get water, and suddenly, because of people in Enterprise, Alabama, a place they've probably never heard of, people they're probably never going to meet, because of you, their whole story is different. They don't walk anymore. Their kids aren't going to get as sick anymore. They have more opportunities to go out and do other things with their time. I'm so thankful for you guys. I'm so thankful for everything that you did. Oh, that's an excellent question. Now, I am not the director of operations, so please cut me some slack. Here's what I can tell you about the pumps. From that picture there, that is a hand pump, and so Zimbabwe is, again, cut me some slack here. Don't fact check me on this too hard. Zimbabwe generally, if I understand it right, has a pretty shallow water table. So in Zimbabwe, we can usually drill down and just use a hand pump, and that works fine. It doesn't need electricity. The picture I showed you earlier of the young lady my age in the Masai Mara region, that was on the border of Tanzania and Kenya, much deeper water there. That was actually the deepest well we ever drilled. It was 930 feet. And of course, that's far too deep for a hand pump, and so that was mechanized, and it is solar is what we used for the power. They actually did have power somewhere in the area. You could see the power lines. They were just too far away, so it had to be solar. And so, as I've probably told you all before, the average well, or a well sponsorship with us is $7,500. That's what the average well cost. That deep well in Kenya was $40,000. And so that's sort of the something we always are looking at. We have a really good, strong church presence in Kenya, and we always want to support the churches first in our efforts. And it's just really expensive to drill there because of all of the factors involved. So that's a really good question, though. And I wish I could tell you a little bit more about the specifics, but that's about as deep as my knowledge of it goes. Now, I believe Richie told me you guys have already heard a little bit about the wells you drilled, specifics, some of the stories, and seen the pictures, so I don't want to take up too much more time on that. But if you do have any specific questions about those villages where the wells you drilled are at, please ask me, and I will pass that question on to our Director of Operations, and they can answer any single question you have about it. I do want to talk about agriculture. I love talking about agriculture. I think the last time I was here with you guys, I probably made this joke, but I know everyone forgets what I say 6 months after I'm gone, so I'm going to try making it again. How many of you guys are involved in agriculture here? Could I see a show of hands, please? Okay, 1, 2 or so. All right, okay. How many of you eat food? Could I see your hand, please? All right, man, the joke, it gets them every time. Everybody, if you eat food, you are very involved in the agriculture process. The reason I love talking about agriculture is for what Bill Gates says. Bill Gates says, and I don't know how smart Bill Gates is, but I know that this is true. He says, if you care about poor people on this planet, then you care about agriculture. And that is true for at least 2 reasons. Number one being the obvious issue of malnutrition. If you know much about the world today, you know that there are very few people who starve to death outside conflict zones, outside some situation like that. Just in the world, it's rare for someone to actually starve to death. There's been a lot of improvements made in that area. However, and unfortunately, it is very common for people to suffer from malnutrition. And we're talking about lifelong consequences, mentally, physically, just having a problematic development because humans didn't get enough calories when they were 0 to 2 years old. It's an issue, again, that we can fix, that we have to fix. The second reason, if you were to look at a cross-section of the world's poorest people, those who live on $2 or less a day, what you find is about 53% of them are farmers. That's what they do for a living. Most of them, they simply farm the land that they're on. They're subsistence farmers. And so here's what we know. If we can raise the yields on smallholder farms in Africa, we can cut the poverty rate dramatically. Now again, not trying to draw you a picture of some utopia. I'm not talking about developing cities and people driving, new cars. I'm talking about getting the people to a place where they can begin to think forward, where they can begin to think not only about survival, but that they can earn enough income that they can start to think, what else can we do beyond just surviving? That's what we're after. And again, this is not a disease we're trying to cure. We know exactly how to do it. We did it in the United States. We did it in Germany. We did it in France. We did it in the UK. We did it in every other so-called developed nation. The way to increase smallholder farm yields is pretty simple. You focus on a few things: better access to water, better seed, better education. That's primarily it. Better soil. So what we do at Healing Hands, we have our ag team that goes around and they host agriculture workshops, and that's exactly what we teach people. Now, when you come to an ag workshop, what you're going to get is you're going to get education on how to plant, on what to plant. You're going to get education on how to build a raised bed garden, how to make your own soil. You're going to get 1 year of inputs, better seed, and you're going to get a micro irrigation system to teach you how to better use the water that you have. And all of our ag trainers are local. They know the region. They know how to farm in the region. And all of our ag trainers are also trained preachers. A long time ago, we decided that we wanted this to be one of our evangelistic components to what we do. And we knew we had to either train farmers to be preachers or preachers to be farmers, and it seemed easier at the time to train preachers to be farmers. And so we partnered with the Nairobi Great Commission School, and we began teaching agriculture there. And the preachers who were, enjoyed it and who were good at it, we brought them on as staff, and then they went back to the churches they were going back to, or went back to the areas to plant churches, just as they were planning to do beforehand. And then in addition to their ministry, they work with us hosting ag workshops. This gentleman here, his name is Jeremiah. And as you can see, he was born without hands, if you look closely at the picture there. When he was born, the village told his mother that she should take him outside the village, lay him on the ground, and leave him to die, because he had a demon, and that is why he was born without hands. Now, obviously, his mother chose not to do that. But as you can imagine, Jeremiah had a very tough upbringing. The community was not very friendly to him. And whether you want to say that's a good reason or not, Jeremiah turned out, in his own words, to be no count. He was an alcoholic. He was abusive to his wife. He was abusive to his children. He was not a pleasant person to be around. In 2016, he came to an ag workshop hosted by Healing Hands. He came every day of the workshop. He was helpful. Everyone there, particularly the outsiders, were amazed at just what all he could accomplish without hands. And if you've been in any social setting, you can imagine how everyone laughing and loving what he could do got him going, and how happy he was that someone was appreciating what he could do. And at the last day of that workshop, Jeremiah was baptized along with 19 other people, and they started the Kisii Church of Christ. The last time I was in Kenya, we had a chance to visit Kisii to put on another ag workshop. And while I was there was a man come up and stood beside me, and I looked over, and it was Jeremiah. It's the first time I've ever met Jeremiah in person. And he says, "I hear you're Colton." I said, "That's right." And he says, "I hear you've been talking about me." I said, yeah. He goes, "I hear that in America, I'm famous." I said, "Well, one may not go that far." And he says, "Well, here's what I want you to do, Colton. I want you to go back to America, and the next time you tell my story, I want you to tell them this. I want you to tell them that 3 years ago when I came to the workshop, I listened to every single word that was spoken. And I went home and I put every syllable of it into practice. And the next year, I raised more food on my farm than I've ever raised in my entire life. And I took the extra food and I sold it at the market, and I took that money and I bought a cow. And the very next year, I saved every single penny that I made from that cow. And this year, I went back to the market and I bought a second cow. So when you go back to America, I want you to tell them that Jeremiah is the man with 2 cows. And to me, that story perfectly encapsulates everything we're trying to do at Healing Hands, everything we're hoping to help the church do in the Global South, which is to show up to an area and provide for their physical needs, and in doing so, help meet their spiritual needs and help them to find joy on this earth, joy that's only found in Jesus. Now, I told you when the Kissy Church of Christ was started, it had 19 people. I'll be honest with you. My friends like to poke fun at me. I'm not the most positive person in the world. At least that's the MO. I think I'm incredibly positive, but I approach life perhaps with too much skepticism sometimes, and I was nervous. I'll be frank with you. I was nervous about going back to Kissy because I had this really great story to tell about this new church that was started, and I was afraid when we showed up that church would no longer be there. I was just afraid that was a possibility. Well, we showed up. They asked us if we wanted to go see the church that they had started. They had had walls. They had had roof. They had built new pews. At this point, they had, and this was 2 years ago now, they had 155 members. And they had just finished this, and they were already talking about tearing down a wall and building onto it because they could no longer fit everyone inside the building. And that, to me, just goes to show that when you go to a place and you simply love them and you simply do things that are kind and you simply help them and you don't ask for anything in return whatsoever, they're going to be interested in what it is that motivates you to act the way that you act. There's just something instinctually attractive about people who show up and help other people and don't ask for anything. And I am 100% committed to this idea that if the church is here, it doesn't matter if it's in Kenya or Zimbabwe or Haiti or India or China. It doesn't matter if it's in Alabama. When you go to a place and you just help people and you just show up and you just say, we're here to help. That's what we want to do. And when they ask why, because we love you and Jesus loves you. That's why we're here. That is going to be an attractive way to get people to be interested in why it is we do what we do. Sorry, I know I'm bouncing around here a little bit. You guys participate in Magi. You guys have done a lot of boxes here. I believe Sabrina Kelly, I don't see her here today, but I know she has been instrumental in getting this going here. Magi is Magi. It's rolling along. For those of you who don't know, it's a phenomenal project where, as you can guess, in places like Honduras, in places like Kenya, where we've recently started adding Magi boxes, there are a lot of situations where kids just don't get to be kids. They just don't have that luxury. Life didn't afford it to them. They have to be the man of a household at 12 years old, or whatever the case may be. And this project was founded on the premise that there should be at least one day of the year where every kid just gets to be a kid. Whether they celebrate Christmas or not, or whether they have anything like that, there needs to be a day like that where we just show up and we just have fun and kids get to be kids. And so we take these shoebox size boxes, we put $15 to $20 worth of items in there. These can be Dollar Tree items. These can, get them from Walmart. We have lists of what to put in the boxes, some clothes, some toothpaste, some little toys, a little outfit, things like that. And we go and we partner with churches on the ground, and they go out into their communities and they get the word out, and people come from all over the place, and we hand out these boxes, and it's just a day to relax and have some joy. Now, if you're anything like me and you also have a little bit of skepticism, you may ask yourself, I've seen my kid get upset because he didn't get the right PlayStation game. Is $15 from the Dollar Tree really going to make some huge impact on a person's life? I can't answer that for everyone, but I can again give you an anecdote of a time I was in Haiti, and we were doing a VBS, and the kids said, hey, do you have anything to give us? The white person's there, white people hand things out sometimes. Say, hey, you got any You got anything? I said, well, no, other than this little bracelet here. It was a 25-cent rubber bracelet. I held that up. That was a mistake. There was a riot in the building. I thought someone was going to get trampled to death. You would have thought it was like a LeBron James worn wristband or something. It was insane the way that they responded, because they just wanted any little thing that came from America, anything that's different, any little toy to show off, whatever. To give them an entire box of $20 worth of things like that, I'm telling you, from the time when they are 30 years old, they're going to remember the day that the Christians brought them these things just to have, just because they thought it was something nice to do. And so I appreciate all of the efforts you guys have made here, and I can tell you this, our partner churches in Honduras and Kenya and the other places that we do this, every single time we have a meeting, any time we ever ask, what can we do to make this better? What do you need? How can we? It's always more boxes. That's what we need more boxes. We have more people wanting to do this. We want to get more community members are asking how they can be involved in this. It is helping those churches in those areas reach out into their community more than you can imagine. So again, we thank you so much for everything that you're doing with that. Time here. All right. Okay. How many of you guys know much about our Women of Hope program? Okay, perfect. I feel like this is one that may not have the publicity that I think it merits. And I'm hoping that it's something that continues to grow, because I think it is a phenomenal program. It's a newer one, and it's newer because I don't think it really would have been feasible several years ago. But now that we've been doing all of these works, and we've been making so many connections in villages, and these villages that we're working are getting clean water, and they're getting better agriculture, suddenly there is more opportunity to do more things there. And so that is sort of the idea behind our Women of Hope program. To tell it to you in a nutshell, in a lot of these areas, there's so many stories to tell, but women are often seen as second class to some degree. I'm not trying to, be dramatic about it and paint it as though it's some archaic barbarism or anything like that. But this was an idea to help women come together and make some money on their own, which is a very, very needed thing. And so we have business professionals, members of the church, who go to these areas and host these business trainings, bring women together, teach them how to run a small business, teach them how to think as someone to start a small business, and help them come up with a business idea, a business plan, a business breakdown, help them to learn about cash flow analysis and profits and how to make some money. They in turn get together on their own. They come up with a business that they think would work in their area. They're tasked with coming up with all the materials that are going to be needed to run the business. They're tasked to coming up with a business plan. How are they going to manage it? What will the hierarchy look like? What are they going to do with the profits? How are they going to pay out dividends to one another? They come up with all of that. And then, in addition to that, they're tasked with raising 10% of the initial investment. And once they have all of that in place, they send us a request. And I'll be honest with you. My what would you call it? I'm not going to say my sin. That's not what I mean. But my mind's blanking. But I love business, is what I'm saying. I just love it. I love the concept, the Shark Tank, private equity, all of that. I love it, and I love this program. It's essentially Healing Hands is operating as a general partner, and we're looking for limited partners to help us fund these businesses and get them off the ground. And I can tell you that, I work for Healing Hands. I love Healing Hands. I'm also a donor of Healing Hands because I love it very much. And this is a program over the last year or so that I've really been focusing my efforts because I love the results that they are seeing. I want to give you, very briefly, I know we're running out of time here, but I do just want to give you sort of an idea of what this looks like. You know, I received a request last year for a peanut butter company. All right, there were 34 women who had come together in Zimbabwe and said, this area, there's not another person anywhere near us selling peanut butter. There are peanut farmers everywhere. We've got a great source for product. We've got the women who are smart enough to do this. Here's what we need. We need the machines. We need business training. We need enough training to teach all of these women how to run the machines. We need money for peanut butter jars. We need money for this. Had a complete itemized breakdown of every single penny. Another breakdown. Here's exactly where the profits are going to go. It's a loan savings program. It's actually very complex, I will say, the way they're going to handle all of the revenue that comes in. And it's ingenious, and it's perfect for their situation. And I said, absolutely, I love that. I want to be a part of this. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. And not even 2 months later, I received a full report from our team saying, here's how this is going. They have purchased every single product on the itemized list. They took to the market on the first day that they could, and they sold out. They sold out of peanut butter. They needed more product. Here's their plan here's their plan to what they're going to do next week when they go to the market, and here's their new future vision. They are looking to get a licensing with the state so that they can officially brand, so that they can go get into bigger markets. They've already contacted transportation on how they're going to get their product from here to there. It's just ingenious, and it's brilliant, and it's exactly what a business would do right here in the States. It's just much smaller numbers and smaller scale, which makes it easier, just to be frank. I mean, you can go be your own Shark Tank Mark Cuban if you want. You can have 12 businesses that you can keep track of in Zimbabwe for a very limited amount of funds. And it's one of those beautiful things where, you know, you hear about often in the charity world of we want to help people help themselves sort of thing. I don't always buy into that mantra, but in this particular case, I do feel like there is a ton of dignity involved. It's not, I'm not giving you charity. I believe in you and the business that you have put together here, and I believe that these funds are going to multiply because of your efforts, because we already have the other things in place with water and ag and education and things that we need. So there's a question.
Water thing for just a minute.
Yeah.
So when these wells are set up, what happens after that? You just walk away from it? Is there a board that oversees the water usage? Is there any sort of maintenance upkeep? Like, how does that work?
Yes, that's an excellent question, and it's just contingent. It depends. It depends on where in the world we are. In Haiti, for example, we have our own water team in Haiti. We have trucks. We have a crew of about 20 members, all Haitians, and 5 days a week. It's set up on smartphones. Most people all over the world have smartphones now. Even in the most impoverished nations, governments have made sure people have smartphones. So there's something called M-Water. So if there's a well committee. There's a well committee at the well. Whoever's over that well committee, if the well breaks down, they go into M-Water. They put in, this well here broke down on this date, this time. It goes to our team. They go fix it.
So a well here in America actually costs a little less than it does there. And you mentioned it's not a complicated process. You said go around and poke some holes and find water. So that's where I walked this 4 miles, and I did this. And that's when I was walking this, I'm like, why does it cost $7,500 in Africa when the per capita income is like $1,500 a year? That's 4 or 5 times what people make per year.
Right.
I understand, why it costs so much if it's not a complicated process.
Yeah, well, that's the big challenge. That's why most people there don't have water, is because of those disparities that you're talking about. Take for example the well in Kenya, for example. So this is a well, the one that cost $40,000 to do. So when you look at that, Healing Hands doesn't have drilling trucks in all the countries that we drill in. So most of the places we bring on contractors.
So our people on the ground, in this particular case, Ebenezer Udofia, who's our Director of African Agriculture, he forms partnerships with the best contractors he can find, and we contract that out to them. So they're, the truck that they use to drill the wells, those on average cost maybe $300,000, $400,000 to buy that truck. They probably had a crew of 20, 25 people who come out to every well. So you look at the cost of the truck, you look at the salaries, fuel cost. On that well that was 900 feet, again, you had to bring in, you had to mechanize it, you had to bring in solar panels. I think the solar on that one cost 15 grand just for the panels, just to mechanize it. So when you look at all of those different things factored in, it just drives up the cost. Now I can tell you, Healing Hands from our perspective is a nonprofit in that Healing Hands does not make any money whatsoever on the wells that we drill. So take the one in Kenya, for example. It costs $40,000 for that. We actually had an NFL player who sponsored that well, which is how it came to be about. But the bill Healing Hands received on that was to the penny the number that he paid to make the well, get put in the ground.
Possible that the political and socioeconomic climate in those countries drives up the cost as well?
Possible. Sorry?
You're using the contractors in those countries, right?
Right. Possible? I suppose possible. Yes, I suppose. Yeah, I think it would just depends. Every country is different.
The difference between digging a well in the United States and digging a well in Zimbabwe is there's no comparison. You've got a lot of different things you've got to deal with over there that you don't have to deal with in the United States. We have laws, rules, and controls over this thing.
Right.
You have to operate a certain way. Whereas over there, maybe not so much. I don't know, I haven't been there. It's just a theory, but you got a situation over there in those countries you don't have, which would affect everything, the ripple effect.
Sure. Well, let's just take, for example, Haiti. Haiti is, again, that's where we have our own operation. In Haiti, we do our own thing. We don't really have to answer much to anyone. Yeah, government corruption is a thing. So when you look at importing things into the country, you're going to be paying a lot of money to get a piece of equipment into the country, to get a truck into the country. But even beyond that, once you have things there, again, just the truck in general that it takes to drill a well, I think the last truck we paid for, it was somewhere around $400,000. We have a crew of 20 people that we fund completely. We pay their entire salaries to do that, which is, again, going around maintaining the wells.
In those countries, it's a way to explain why a well is $7,500 in that country and $2,000 in this country.
Sure.
That's just the cost of doing business in that country, given the socioeconomic, and the political climate and everything else. It's just the cost of doing business.
I got you. I understand. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. I'm sure my time is up. Is there any other questions real quick before we go? Yes, that is a really great question. The best thing for me to do is to tell you that I will get you a report from that, because I know we have a lot of things put together from that. Jana Owen, who's a VP of us, has been heading that up. I know we did a lot of the buckets. I don't know if you guys were involved in the bucket project that we sent over. Basically, my understanding is that there is a team that was already established in Poland, and all of the efforts that we've been doing have been going through that team based out of Poland. But as far as, where all, what specifically the money has gone to and all of those efforts, I would need to follow up with you on that. All right. Hey, thank you guys. Oh, I'm sorry, one more.
Do y'all use any hydraulic
on the pumps? On the wells? Yeah, yeah. So all of our hand pumps don't require electricity. Right. Yeah. That's so when we can drill in places with a shallow enough water that we can just pump it up through that. That is, yes, sir. That's exactly what we use. All right. Thank you guys so much. Listen, as I conclude, I do just want to say again how much we and I appreciate everything you guys have done already and everything that you guys are going to do in the future. It's very appreciated. Thank you so much.